Welcome back to Thriving After Abuse Summit. I'm Brooke Deanne, your host, and I am here with the beautiful Laura Richards. She is an international podcaster, a #1 best-selling author, and a speaker that is dedicated to empowering women. So, through her global podcast, That's Where I'm At, and her best-selling book, Married to a Nice Guy, Getting Over Narcissistic Abuse, she shares her personal journey and recovery from a 32-year marriage to a narcissist. So, this is big stuff. I know we're talking about healing, empowering, and reclaiming your life after narcissistic abuse. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty. And I'm just so excited, Laura, that you're here to share this wisdom with us. So let's just kind of begin. How did you even what was the pivotal moment for you? And you're like, you know what? I'm going to go out and I'm going to start this podcast and I'm going to start helping women
Yeah.
heal from narcissistic abuse.
Just for fun, I thought I'd do this. you know. It's funny to me because I think life sometimes hands you lemons and you have to make lemonade. And having gotten a divorce, didn't know my ex was a narcissist until after I started to get clarity, because when you're in abuse, you are in such a brain fog and so many other things. And I got some clarity. And then when I started to tell people like my story, people were telling me, the people around me at the time were telling me, don't talk about it, don't call it abuse, like he didn't hit you, so it's not really abuse, those kinds of things. And I felt really stifled, and then it brought up all the childhood stuff and all my life being told to be quiet. And so the short version is I just started talking about it on social media. I was super petty and made super petty videos about my ex. And I don't care. I
Sometimes
still,
you be petty though, and pettiness is good. Okay. Sometimes you just that's the way you express it.
well, it was that anger, right? I don't know if your listeners can really understand this, but or maybe they can, because if you've been in abuse, the anger you feel after you find out that you've been lied to and betrayed, there's an anger there. And I was like, I want to do something with this. And I was never allowed to talk and never allowed to express my feelings. And so, I think people in abuse understand that word allowed, because we keep the peace and we do what we're told and don't ruffle any feathers. And so I started talking about it on social media. And you know what happened? I had a really big response. And people were coming out of the woodwork to say, me too. And I was like, oh my gosh, my friends, I didn't know that you'd been in abuse. And so I really felt a need to talk about it. And I actually talk about this on one of my newer episodes on my podcast, because my podcast producer, who is now a good friend, she said, you're not ready. Because I wanted to do a podcast about it. She's like, you're not ready. And I was like, I told her, thank you for telling me that, because, we want to speak from our healing, not our wound. And she just didn't think I was at that point yet. She was also doing some holistic work with me. So she kind of knew me in that intimate sort of way. And I'm glad she did, because in a little while, it was just like, I think I'm ready. You just know. And I didn't
Yeah.
want other people to feel like they were alone. So I wanted to talk and give women a place to share their story.
Yeah, and that's super powerful because we need to be able to relate because when you've been in that environment, you feel very alone.
Yeah.
And for me, when I was in my abusive relationship, I was the person that kept it a secret. Like
Yes.
I didn't tell anybody. I wanted to look like we had the perfect relationship. I
Yeah.
wanted to be that image, if you will.
Hmm.
And so talking about it was like this is scary to actually open up and say this is what happened to me and what I let allowed and what
Yeah.
I put up with and
Yeah.
like we kind of go through those cycles of shame and like oh my gosh look what I did and now here we are. So kudos to you for just getting out there and doing the work and sharing your story, and obviously this has been huge for you because not only are you doing it on a podcast but you did it in your book. So
Yeah.
you're sharing your voice, you're sharing,
Yeah.
and you like honestly, I feel like you just unleashed it all in one fell swoop, and it probably felt really beautiful. Yeah, that's so.
That's what I really did. And so that it's funny to me, because I was a speech therapist for 15 years and I helped kids, find their voice. And now it's like, now I'm helping women find their voice. And it's so funny to me. It's always who I've been, but when you're in abuse, you can't be who you want to be, because maybe you don't even know who you are because you're so stifled, right? We're in such survival mode that were so stifled. And like with your story that you've shared, like your whole life, right, was a what you had to be a certain way your whole life. And so, yes, you probably understand that feeling. It's like I just want to get out there and share it all and do it all, and nobody's going to stop me, you know.
Yes, that's like you just being fully in your empowerment. It feels good to
Yes.
get there. I love that. So, my question to you is I really am interested, what was the turning point for you where you even realized that you were living with a narcissist, like that you were experiencing narcissistic abuse? What was that pivotal moment for you?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know until after, and this is what happened. As I so the last couple of years of our marriage was the pandemic, and it was terrible. He just wasn't even I was in full what I see now in hindsight as the discard phase. I was completely being discarded. He stopped talking to me. We really didn't have a relationship. But I was in such freeze mode that I didn't do anything other than I was going to therapy to like figure out like how can I be a better wife? Why can't I figure out how to save my marriage? Why is everything so difficult? Because he was still telling me if you were a better wife, we wouldn't have these issues. If you were making more money, we wouldn't have these issues. If you were whatever, we wouldn't have these issues. And so I was still stuck in that mode. I mean, we'd been together 33 years, including dating. So of course, I was believing him because you want to believe the person that you're spending your life with, right? And so I was trying my best, but I was getting to a point where I said, I don't know if I can go on with this at all. And so I kept talking to my therapist and saying, like, I think I'm going to leave for a week and like send him a message. And she said, well, do you think he'll come get you? And don't want that to sound like he was never physically abusive with me. No, he wouldn't come get me. I don't think he would. I don't think he would fight for me. And I always felt that. So at some point, I just decided I go into it at a little more length on my podcast and in my book that he kind of approached me about it, but didn't say it because some of them are cowards and they don't say it. They just push you to the edge until you say it that you want out. And that's what
Mm,
I did. So I said I wanted out. And I had suspected like he was unfaithful and just things like that. I was starting to piece things together, but I didn't know anything. I was not the person. I've heard so many people tell me I was just sitting there Googling what's wrong with my husband. I never did that because I was being told it was me. And that was a lifetime of learning that it's my fault. So I
mm,
had 55 years under my belt of it's my fault and I had to figure out me. And so I didn't figure it out until I found out that he was dating the person that I thought he was dating. And it's sort of like I had like a lightning bolt reaction. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. And by then, I had already started seeing things on the internet of narcissistic abuse. And I wasn't sure, but I was like, this sounds like what I went through. And I started piecing it all together and it made complete sense. And now that's why I like to talk about it is because it's so insidious and so subtle that you don't realize it's happening. I didn't realize it was happening. And so many people that I talked to, same way, they didn't realize until after. So that's why I
mm.
talk about it so people can see the signs.
Yeah, it's really important, I think, because you don't see it when you're in it. Just like you said, you took it to mean that everything was your fault. It was
Yeah.
something about you, like you were the problem. And that's often what a narcissist does, is it's
Yeah.
like they project onto you, you are the
Yeah.
one to blame.
Yeah.
You're the one that's supposed to fix it because you're the problem. And
Right.
you're just then you're like, "Okay, well, how do I manage this? How do I, like, make everything perfect?
Mhm.
Or how do I make them happy?" Or and so
Yeah.
you're chasing this affection and this love, and it makes you blind actually to see the other party. Like, because then you don't even think about, "Well, maybe it's them." Like, you literally truly believe what they're saying because
Yeah.
they say it with such conviction and such manipulation and such
Right.
ability to cloud your thinking. So I always like to say that, like, if you're thinking this is all about you,
Right.
that could be your first big thing to say, okay, what do I need to dig deeper into here? What is it about them that is
Yeah.
causing the problem? Because it's two ways. It's two ways. We just
Well,
want to
so right, exactly. I mean, people often say like, we each have to take responsibility, but that's not true in abuse, because like he was actively abusing. And so but we do have to figure out like what's our part. And what I mean by that is because we don't blame for abuse, but what kept attracting me to him? Why couldn't I leave? Why couldn't I stay? Or why did I stay? So all those things is what I talk about. Why people say like, I don't understand. I'm so bonded to him. Right. You're in a trauma bond. Like we talk about it. Why is this happening? It's a chemical reaction. I just get right down to all that stuff. I try to say it every day. I swear I'm talking about the same five things over and over, but people have to hear it so that they understand that they're not bad for having stayed. It's there's so many people who stayed longer. Some people figure it out right away. I now at this point, yes, of course, if somebody treated me badly, and I think I would see those things, I would see the red flags because they come in little forms like a you know, backhanded compliment, things like that. It's like, I don't want to live in a life like that. Like, that's not what I want, how I want to live. Because a little tiny backhanded compliment can start getting into bigger red flags.
Mm. Yeah, let's talk about those flags a little bit. I mean, I think you're probably really good at that because you share this a lot with people. So let's share this with this audience.
Yeah.
You know, what do you have you found in your journey, and maybe just even talking to other women,
Yeah.
s- because it's the small insidious things that are actually the things that accumulate to the bigger, larger things. And I think we
Mhm.
don't always notice those smaller things. We kind
Right.
of say we shove it off or we justify it or
Mhm.
make an excuse for it, right? So what would you say is probably the, I don't know, top five? Let's go there.
Yeah, I don't know if I have an entire list, but I think of things like, okay, so we have to remember, do words and actions match? Okay. If not, then that's manipulation. I just blindly believed him because we're trying to make logic out of something illogical. We have maybe we're people of our word, which is what they like about us, right? And we're maybe pretty forgiving and things like that. And so if they make a mistake and they say, "Oh, I promise I'll change," and then they don't, they know we'll give them another chance. And I'm just saying this like as a sweeping generalization, but we often have similar traits. But I never thought to hold him accountable, not that he would take accountability to your words and your actions don't match. I have to say over and over that you said you would do this and you didn't. And maybe there would be gaslighting in there. So that kind of thing as well. Gaslighting on the outside can look like maybe you're catching them in a lie,
Mm,
things like that. If you get suspicious, if they're demanding of you in ways that makes you feel like you're compromising yourself or that you're saying, I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in doing that. And they still push and push and push. Things like that. Those are subtle red flags that just look like, oh, he's pursuing me, or he just really just he talked me into it. But sometimes when you're compromising your integrity, I mean, that's a big one because I'm only talking about manipulators. I'm not talking about healthy, people. I'm only talking about people who just go out of their way to manipulate because if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And so we have to look at that. Those backhanded compliments, I was just joking. You're so
mm,
sensitive. So if you call them out on saying that was rude, why did you call me fat or whatever it is? Oh, you're so sensitive. Just don't worry about it. Stop being so sensitive. Things like that, where it can't all be about you. It's not always your fault. And that's how those are the things that look like normal. We're just having a fight in our relationship, but it's not, it's not.
yeah. I think for me, it's more of like being able to see that even when I expressed my needs or expressed what I felt or any of those things, it was always dismissed or it was always invalidated. It was always like,
Yes.
well, it's because of this. And like instead of just honoring how I felt and actually
Yeah.
sitting in how I felt, it was always dismissed or invalidated. And so I found after leaving that relationship how hard it was to even get into any other relationships because anytime that trigger happened where I felt like I was being invalidated, even if it
Yeah.
wasn't really happening in real time,
Yeah.
I would immediately react from that space because it felt so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you might be even understanding that what I'm talking about, because we
Mhm.
just automatically now we're on the defense, right? After
Right.
years and years of surviving this type of abuse, our body is
Mhm.
defensive. Our whole entire being is like looking, it's hyper aware, looking for the signals of, is this person an abuser? Is this person
Right.
gaslighting? Is this person trustworthy?
Right.
So that is hard in itself, you know, and I know that many survivors struggle with doubting themselves, you know,
Yeah.
really doubting themselves. So how did you kind of begin trusting your own reality again, or your own truth, or
Yeah.
your own wisdom?
And as you were telling your story, that I'm glad you asked this question because I was thinking, when we're comfortable with ourselves, when we learn to love ourselves and when we learn to set boundaries, which go hand in hand, then we can move through this world where if somebody says something, you could say, that's like, wow, you really invalidated me. And you actually can say the words rather than, okay, I'm out of here, and running for your life because
Mhm.
you want to be able to get into any kind of relationship, even a friendship, where you can have those discussions, right? You can have that discussion. And for me, it's definitely the loving myself and setting boundaries, but those always go hand in hand. So learning, who am I? What do I like? Um, Learning to set boundaries with people and saying like, you can't, there's certain ways you can't talk to me. We have to remember boundaries are what we'll do if people continue their behavior. So there were people that were very close in my life. I said, I can't continue a relationship with you if this is what you're doing to
Mhm.
me. Um, and so when they continued that, my decision was to leave certain relationships and certain friendships because they weren't interested in changing that. That's okay. People can do whatever they want. That doesn't mean I have to participate in that life. So setting boundaries, and you're never going to set boundaries if you don't love yourself. So working on that, that was a big thing, doing a lot of journaling, meditation, working with coaches and therapy to help me um, come out of who has Laura been for this long?
Yeah.
Because just because we've always been that way doesn't mean it has to continue.
Mm. I love what you just said. That really hit home. Is it's like looking at who Laura was. Because when you leave, there's something about, you realize that you lost yourself, maybe never had an identity in the relationship, even
Right.
if you did, right? I know for myself, I look at myself and I was like, I don't really know if I ever knew who I was. I never had the chance. I went from being a teenager to marriage, and I didn't really have an in between to even discover who I was. I was told who
Mhm.
I had to be. And so, like, looking even at that, like, and seeing, oh my gosh, look at all the ways that Laura survived and Laura
Mhm.
acted or Laura behaved because
Yeah.
she was trying to fit into the mold that your ex-husband was trying to create for you, right?
Right. And also family systems and also church systems. So I had all that around me and some toxic friendships. And so everyone was telling Laura who to be.
Mhm.
And Laura was being obedient. And guess what? Laura was miserable because everything was toxic. But you're right. It's so funny. Like the words that came out of your mouth. I'm like, we all have such similar experiences because did I know who I was? Because I was like, I've never known who I was for 33 years. I'm gonna figure it out. And then I was like, oh no, 55 years. All my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my entire life was here. This is who you are. You're the first daughter. We're going to parentify you. We're going to have some family trauma. We're not going to deal with it. Everybody good? Okay, great. You know what I mean? No, everybody's not good.
Yeah.
So unraveling that and even thinking about what do you want to keep and what do you not want to keep?
Mhm.
Because I just laugh every time my therapist, I would talk to her and so hiking was a big deal for my ex. And so the first time somebody asked me to go hiking, I started crying because I had a trigger response and I was like, I don't know if I like hiking or if it was just something he liked to do. And so I said to my therapist, what do I do? And she's like, well, you should probably go hiking and
Test it out.
see if you like it. I was like, oh, well, that's a great idea. So things we're not thinking about because we're still healing. Literally, we're still healing. And so I thought that my life, I was going to, I'll be honest, I thought I was getting rid of the problem and
Mm.
that I would just, my life would be great. I just walk out of my marriage, everything would be great. No, it's been an unraveling of who's Laura and what does she want to be when she grows up.
Yes. I really feel like it's like starting from the basic foundation.
Yeah.
It's like you having to destroy like all the walls and all everything inside
Yeah.
and tear it up, right? It's a full remodel of your
It
whole
really is.
entire
Well,
psyche.
it is.
Yes.
It is, especially like we said, of all the systems that we're in, right? With church and friendships and family, because they've been telling us who to be. And it's like, do I even want to be that? I still am going through that. I will automatically do things. I can't even think of anything off the top of my head, but I automatically do things and I think, do I even want to do this? Is this who I really am? Is this how I really want to live my life? And
Mhm.
so I just keep asking me those myself those questions. And the nice thing is there isn't anyone in my ear saying, no, you can't, and things like that. And so I can say, yes, I don't know. No, maybe, and then figure it out.
I love that you brought that up because I think that is a big part of my journey as well is testing, also seeing, okay, what is feel good? What does feel good to me? And what
Yeah,
doesn't feel good? And then honoring that is creating that self-trust that we were talking about before. Like creating that the ability to even see that, yes, this is an alignment for me. I enjoy doing this and this is who me is and I will accept
Mhm.
this. And then what I don't accept and kind of removing everything that's not me from my life and like feeling not guilty about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
right, like
seriously.
letting old relationships die, letting things that no longer serve me just fade away into the background and really being who I really want to be and how I want to show up in the world. So
Yeah.
it feels like that's what you're doing. What would you say for yourself? Now we got rid of the old version of Laura, right? We've broken
Right,
down all the walls and now you're rebuilding this beautiful new building. Tell me,
right.
who is the new Laura? What does she value and who is she like to be in the world?
It's funny because it's similar to who I always was, but it was quote unquote too much for people. And it's that I love to laugh and I love to make people laugh and I love taking care of and honoring and uplifting women. And so it's like not a surprise what I'm doing. It's not a surprise that I speak to women and I'm helping women. That's like it's not a surprise. It's who I was at my core, who I've always been.
Mhm.
But so many I just think back to different parts of my life where people were like, "You don't have to help everybody. You don't have to do." And I'm just thinking I wanted to be that helper because I wanted that help. And so I'm still, I think, at the base, the same kind of person who I've always been that just walks through this world and cares. And now I'm much more active, I think, in like community things or like not with politics necessarily, but with like, civil issues and things like that. That I just am more involved because I'm allowed to have a voice and say, I don't understand that, or I do, and let me talk about it. And because I wasn't, quote unquote, allowed to do that before, wasn't allowed to even ask questions because, oh my gosh, you're so dumb. How do you not understand? And so now I love to do that. And so I feel like I'm just more free to explore what I like and what I don't like. It's funny because I've tried a few things. I've tried painting and pickleball and things like that. And I've always been, if you don't like it, then don't do it again. But how are you going to figure out if you like it if you don't do it? And but I wasn't allowed to do that in my marriage because it was like, "Oh, you took that class and now you're not even doing anything." Okay.
Mm,
Well, I wanted to see if I liked it and I didn't like it. That kind of thing. And so just trying to be just go out into the world and try things I haven't tried before because now I have the freedom to do that. I've always been kind of curious, so doing a lot more of that.
beautiful. Feeling the freedom to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, because I
Mhm.
feel like being in those type of relationships, you don't even realize that you feel like you're encased, right? Like
Yeah.
you're restricted. Everything is
Mhm.
restricted.
Mhm.
And you don't realize how restricted you really feel until you finally have broken free and you're like, "Oh my gosh, now what do I do? Because this is uncomfortable. Before I was so restricted and now I don't know what to do with all this
Right.
freedom." So you're starting to learn that. And I think that's really the part about being able to truly heal.
Yeah.
And as you heal, like what have you noticed? Like what are the first signs that you think that you got that you're like, oh, I am starting to heal from this
Mm.
abuse. I am starting to have more self-awareness and start to understand myself better.
Yeah, that's a good question because I think people think like you're going to cry forever. I think
Mm,
I learned different things of like, well, you're not going to cry forever. And also, you are going to cry the times you don't expect to be crying. Something's going to trigger you. And that doesn't mean that you're failing at your healing. It
yeah.
just means it was a down moment. We're allowed to have triggers. I had a trigger recently. And I don't even have to go into what it was because it was a personal trigger. It knocked me down for 3 days. I wasn't stuck in the bed for 3 days, but I had it on my mind, and I was talking to a really good friend, and she said, "Yeah, that's gonna happen." I was like, "Oh." I just thought I thought I was failing,
Oh, yeah.
right? That I thought I was failing at my healing. I'm like, "Oh, I thought I was so healed." Well, it's okay to be down. It's okay to get triggered by something. It's okay to think about something and still have it hurt. And so just learning that. But I wake up and I have joy and I'm not constantly thinking about him like I was at the beginning, where every day I'd wake up and be like, what happened? And I'm so confused and I was heartbroken and things like that. Now it's different.
Yeah.
So see, it's almost like now the sun is shining. It's like finally one day you wake up and you see the sun is shining, and where
Mhm.
before it felt really cloudy all the time. It's
Yeah.
simple things. That's why I tell women, like, journal and write down the little wins. You got out of bed today, and that's a good thing. And yesterday you couldn't. So today you did. Or anything, whatever you think, because when we look back, we think that we have to look at those big wins, but we have to look at the little wins along the way because they add up to the big wins.
Yes, I think so too. And we don't really celebrate ourselves enough in the
Yeah.
fact that you're seeing the glimmers and seeing the sun shining and seeing like
Yeah.
hope again just says that you're kind of coming out of that dark period. And I think there's something to be said about that because it can feel really dark and encompassing and like I don't know if I'm ever gonna feel again alive
Yes.
and or want to
Yes.
feel alive. And I
Mhm.
think we can speak to also that deep pain, that happens after grieving this type of loss and then grieving what was and what you experienced. So thank you
So
for sharing
much.
so much. I mean, it's so important to talk about because it is. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. It is difficult sometimes, and we have to sit with that too. So,
Yeah, for sure.
so I know that you have a freebie for the audience. It is
Mhm.
You Are Not Crazy ebook, and we
Mhm.
want to tell the audience a little bit about this freebie.
Sure. Well, I named it that because, sometimes when you're leaving narcissistic abuse, you sure feel crazy because that is their tactic, is to make you feel confused and crazy. So, I'm giving you a free chapter, and I really like the way it turned out. I'm giving you some information in there and then also like some meditation, some journaling prompts, things like that. So you can just read it if you want, or you can actually do some action steps to kind of help you with your healing. So, and see if it's just one thing to help you on your healing journey.
Beautiful. That sounds like massive value, and go and grab that, everybody, because honestly, we all need just those little small tools like every day. And
Every
we
day.
don't sometimes we don't make the time for them. I know even myself, even I've been on my healing journey for a
Mhm.
while, sometimes I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot to do a tool today." Like, I need to
Yeah.
put that out. That's why I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm feeling like I can't manage life right now.
Yeah.
And just taking that time to do that is really important. So that's amazing.
Good.
So thank you so much for being here. I want to kind of wrap this up with this last question. Just share with the audience something that helped you on your journey. Maybe it's something someone said. Maybe it's something that was pivotal that happened in your journey that changed
Yeah.
your life. It could be anything. What comes to the surface for you?
That you're not always going to feel this way. When I was at my darkest and I like didn't think I could even breathe one more breath because I was so heartbroken at what happened. I had friends who had been through it and they said, I promise you, you're going to be okay. And I want people to understand that you're going to be okay. You're becoming the version of you who will never let this happen again. I
Mm,
promise you.
that's really important. Yeah. Because in those moments, you don't feel like you're okay. You don't know, you can't see it. But
No.
hearing that from somebody and knowing that you've walked the other side, you've walked
Yep.
through this, and that you are okay and everything is okay is great.
Yeah.
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 Well, thank you again, Laura, for being here. And everybody, thank you for listening into the summit. Laura's information will be in the show notes. So if you want to connect with her, listen to her podcast, go grab her book. That it will all be there for you. Thanks again for listening in. We hope this was valuable for you and you can grow in your own journey.
Thanks, Brooke.